guys, it's Mike here, and today we're going to talk about the news in tech over the last few days. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So what are we going to talk about? YouTube has new age verification tools rolling out. The Nintendo Switch is getting more expensive. Epic Games won their lawsuit with Google, and Reddit plans to be a search engine. Let's go ahead and get right into it. YouTube will soon want to verify your age. Yeah, you heard that right. Gone are the days of browsing YouTube with nobody knowing you're even there. So YouTube will soon begin using AI-powered age estimation technology to figure out which users are under the age of 18. This does go into effect August 13th. So YouTube will detect underage users in the US based on their activity and the age of their account, allowing the platform to automatically apply restrictions. So these accounts will fall under the same restrictions that any account that already has labeled themselves under the age of 18 fall under. It'll include a block on age-restricted videos, non-personalized ads, take a break notifications, and limit repeated video recommendation. And by limiting the video recommendations, it's referring to sensitive topics. There's also a few other things that go into that. However, if you wanted to get rid of this, you are going to be required to verify your age. You would do this by uploading A, your driver's license, or B, a credit card. Now, for anyone who's already monetized on YouTube, they already have your information. And for a lot of users, they actually probably already have one of those two things. But for the rest of you that prefer not to give YouTube your data in privacy, you're kind of stuck, unfortunately. I believe this is going into effect because of the new laws coming from the UK and from Australia. The government has felt like they needed to step in because for whatever reason, right, whether you want to blame the parents, which, I mean, personally, if you're not monitoring what your kid is doing online, you're probably not doing your part in restricting what they can do. I do understand as a parent, you can't restrict everything, but you should be doing your part. However, they have also deemed that platforms are not doing their due diligence in order to keep these children or anyone under the age of 18 from viewing things such as adult content. Of course, this is probably going to result in so many accounts being flagged as children, but there are adults watching certain videos, or maybe they have kids and somehow it got flagged. But whatever it may be, right? AI rolls out and there's always something funny going on with it. Now, this has gotten to a point where, of course, children should not be consuming some of this content meant for adults. However, there's a blame going around on the platforms themselves. So maybe, you know, we need to do a better job of educating parents on how to implement parental controls, or maybe there needs to be more videos out there. You know, it's hard to say what the next step should be. However, this is just one of those things where unfortunately it's going to be a breach of privacy. And it's where it starts, right? And I really hope that we don't continue down a path where you have to have age verification on every little thing. This is going to impact a lot of people. And if YouTube is able to successfully implement this, who's to say that other websites are not going to start doing this as well? Now, not all websites have adult content on them. However, usually it just doesn't stop with one implementation. So hopefully before this gets so widespread with every single, you know, website doing it or whatever it may be, hopefully we can find some sort of implementation that actually makes sense. Maybe on your computer, there's a warning. Maybe when you boot up your iPad, it says, hey, look, you need to set parental controls if you're going to give your children this. You know, they need to be aware of what their children are looking at anyway. So again, guys, I do think as a parent, it will be my responsibility when my child gets of age to limit what they're viewing on the internet. I can't blame anyone but myself because I know what's out there. And kids are going to be kids. Unfortunately, sometimes they are going to access that stuff. And there's nothing you can do about it when they go to school, when they do all sorts of things, right? Maybe they steal their parents' driver's license and boom, they're verified. Or maybe they steal their credit card and boom, they're verified. You're never going to prevent children from completely doing these things. However, as parents, I do believe we need to do our part. But what do you guys think? Is this kind of a breach of privacy? Is this something that really it does fall into the hands of the parents in implementing parental controls? Do parental controls need to be easier to access? I think there's so many different ways you can go about this, right? Does it fall on the hardware to say, hey, every single app needs to have easily accessible parental controls? Where does the buck stop, right? And who does this fall under? So to recap my thoughts on Google's age verification, unfortunately, I don't really agree with it, but what can we do to stop it? I'm not really sure. If you guys have any ideas, let me know in the comments down below. Again, where do we go from here? So moving on, Nintendo Switch prices have increased. Now, I believe they've cited market concerns when it comes to this. So what does that mean? Tariffs, right? Tariffs have been impacting, especially the companies that are based overseas, like Nintendo. They're hitting all of that hardware, especially the chips, right? I know they've been going after chip manufacturers and wanting to push all those chip manufacturers into the United States. You know, you can't expect this overnight. It's not realistic. So what we have here is Nintendo hasn't confirmed what new prices are, but it was pointed out by a user that Target's website briefly showed a $40 increase for the original Switch, putting it at $339.99. The site also listed the Switch OLED getting $50 more expensive at $399.99, while the Switch Lite was listed at $229.99, a $30 increase. So Target now displays the original prices for the first gen Switch family. However, Nintendo has confirmed today, and they did announce today, that there is going to be price increases. So I would suspect by Monday, we have this increase in price. So unfortunately, market conditions, we're gonna pay more for Nintendo, and we already know they ain't gonna pay that buck. They're gonna pass it on to their consumer. And we know that because of the price of the Switch 2. Come on. So Epic won its Google lawsuit again. So this has been in arbitration, I believe, and appeal or whatever it was in for years, right? I believe they originally had won the case in 2023. Now, what is the case? So Android being kind of like that open source system for your cell phone, they believe that they should be able to put whatever store they want on your cell phone, right? So if you want to go to the Epic Games website, you can download their store similar to how you would on a Microsoft computer, and you can purchase things directly from Epic Games. Essentially, this eliminates Google's income from the Play Store. So they're not directing everyone through the Play Store, where traditionally they were getting like a 30% cut prior. So like the Apple App Store, right? You have to go through iOS, download all the apps off the App Store. You can't, install something that avoids going through Apple to make purchases. I believe it's actually against their terms of service. However, the court has ruled in Epic Games' favor, and they will allow Epic Games to have their own software on Android devices. And Google did say they only have 14 days, as my Google AI turns on when I'm talking about them, but they only have 14 days to implement the change. So hopefully
Google has 14 days to implement changes to the Play Store.
So hopefully this is good for those game manufacturers. Hopefully it allows them to pass some more money on to their developers. Realistically, is that probably going to be the case? No, but you know what? It is good for the game companies themselves. So moving on, Reddit plans to unify its search interface. So Reddit honestly has been one of my go-tos anytime I Google search something. So if I'm going to buy a product, I type in, for example, this Sony camera, and then I put Reddit on the end of my Google search because I want to see what users are really thinking of that product. And I think a lot of people are in my same boat. So what Reddit is planning on doing is they're actually making search at the forefront of their app. So the CEO did say that Reddit is one of the few platforms positioned to become a true search destination. We offer something special, a breadth of conversations and knowledge you can't find anywhere else, right? A lot of the Reddit forums offer personal experience with products, maybe help, and maybe how to do things, DIY stuff. There's so many things on Reddit. I didn't even touch really the surface, but I believe this is a good thing, and I think they'll continue to hammer this home. I use Reddit all the time, even if I'm just browsing. Honestly, it's one of my go-to sources for news, as well as X, right? I'm going to all these different tech websites as well. There's just so many different places to go right now. It can be a little overwhelming, but I like that Reddit is going to make it easier to search on their app directly. Am I going to do it? I don't know. I'll probably still put Reddit at the end of every Google search, but we'll see. So that has been your tech news for today, July 31st, this grand Friday. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know. Leave a like, leave a comment. What do you guys think on Google's new AI verification stuff as well for YouTube? Again, I'm not really a fan of it, but it is what it is. I don't think we can do anything to stop it, unfortunately, and this is where it starts. But outside of that, guys, I appreciate you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.